What is a telltale sign that someone is a selfish person? Every bad thing you do to them is drama-worthy. Every bad thing they do to you are details and should be moved on from. And why can't you just do that? You're so dramatic. Conversations don't feel like conversations. They are one-sided talks about what they want, their thoughts, their life, their priorities, etc. When you are able to slip a word in, your words are used as transitions in their dialogue. No matter how you format your words, they all just add to the plot of their story. What you say and what you do are pawns in their game to be manipulated in a way that belittles your experiences, actions, opinions, and choices. When every single bad thing that happens to another person gets spun around into their personal problem, for example, I'm really upset because my friend family member is going through X. Doesn't think they're wrong in the slightest bit. They can't shoulder any bit of responsibility. They gladly take any favors you do for them, but when asked if they could reciprocate once, they get defensive and are aggressive and act like you're the selfish one for daring to expect something in return. It doesn't make you a bad person to expect reciprocation in a relationship with someone else, romantic or platonic. Relationships are give and take, and that makes them healthy. It's not entitlement to expect kindness if you give kindness. If you're the only one giving, you're being taken advantage of. Edit, as some people have pointed out, doing something kind with the expectation to gain something from it can be manipulative. I'm not talking about narcissism and manipulation. I'm talking about the natural give and take in a relationship. It is not manipulative to expect certain things out of a relationship. The whole reason we make relationships is because they give us something, whether that be support, love, safety, or other advantages. It isn't a bad thing, it's a human thing. Typically, with give and take, if you notice a pattern of one person consistently taking without giving, the one taking is the problem, not the one giving. The kind of people who use this as a manipulation tactic aren't the ones who stick around in a relationship for years, doing favors and kind things without being asked to. They're more likely to do one favor and demand twice as much in return. Why do I know this? I've had these people in my life, which is what gave me the realization I commented above. I love these threads. I always use them as a way to measure whether I'm doing those things or not and fix them if I am. If they always talk about themselves, they respond how worse their situation is when you're sharing your problems with them. No try for help or listening, just trying to draw attention on their side. They bring nothing to the potluck but are first in line. My ex was insanely selfish. Her dad gave her a $20K a month allowance, plus paid for her mortgage on a penthouse in Nick while she went to Yale. He paid her car plus insurance. She had zero need for cash. All bills are paid. He also gave her a credit card with him assuming no limit. Cause we bought a car on a whim once. But I saw her steal $3 from a friend who was passed out. She'd steal panties from Walmart. She had a pile of cash in her bedroom. We once needed to pay for a delivery, but she refused to touch the pile of cash. I had to walk to my car to get cash. And when I tipped her $10 for waiting, my ex went ballistic, calling me a bitch, a moron, and queer. She's wicked greedy. Littering. If you are in a group and there is one person that is constantly interrupting the middle of what you or anyone else is saying, generally to brag about themselves with a one-upper story, is generally a precursor to stop associating with them. I've met too many of them in my days, and they are more often than not happy to throw you under the bus whenever the opportunity arises. When anything that happens to them is the worst thing in the world, and whatever happens to you is not that bad and a waste of time talking about or dealing with. I know your mom died a month ago, but my best friend of 3 years died too, so I don't see why you are so sad all of the time. I think narcissism and selfishness go hand in hand, so there you go. Cliché answer, but I have found the return the shopping cart test to be pretty accurate. It is such a small thing, but it does tell you if a person thinks small things like that matter. For me, it's people who listen to loud TikTok in public, especially in relatively silent places. They're rude to waitstaff or just staff and employees in general, or if their situational awareness is severely lacking, and they don't seem to have a problem with it. They have that superpower to lead everything back to themselves. Even when you're actually talking about your own life or a specific problem of yours, they somehow make it that you start talking about them instead without even changing the topic. They don't remember the times people helped them, but remember clearly all the times they have helped others. A visible exoskeleton. Edit, SEL fish. Complaining at work to coworkers doing your work for you while you complain. They feel no remorse for how they've hurt others. When they always play the victim card. 99% of the time they only place themselves in the victim seat by ignoring all the effort, or cost other people have to endure and only focus on what they go through themselves. They want to dig up your dead dog to use the skull for taxidermy purposes, and is insistent on doing it despite your objections. If they refuse to take responsibility for their actions, they never admit when they are wrong even if there is physical evidence. Poor listener. When they think everything is a competition. I had a girl pull my sleeve up once and saw my old cuts, then blurted out, "I have way more than you." They're surprised and disgruntled when you accept what they've offered. Example, I used to be friends with someone who loved to offer stuff. "I have some cute maternity clothes that would fit you. I can lend them to you if you want. I can help you rearrange your classroom. I'll come in early tomorrow. I made such a great apple pie. I can bring you a piece." These aren't things that anyone solicited. She offered them up. Yet she 100% expects that everyone will politely decline her offers. "I'm a yes person. Anything you offer to me, I will happily accept." The look on her face when I would respond, "That wow'd be great, thanks," was always priceless. She never followed through with any of it, but she never stopped offering stuff, and I never stopped accepting. It was kind of hilarious. One of my workmates had her drink taken from the fridge by someone else. When she put up a sign on the fridge to remind people not to take things, another guy asked her why she was doing it. She explained her drink was taken, and without skipping a beat he said, "Oh yeah, that's because someone took mine." So not only willing admitting to doing JT, but his justification was that someone did it to him. So yeah, I'd say that. When they monologue at you, every conversation is just them performing, and everyone else is just part of the audience. When they are unable to see beyond their own needs and feelings, and aren't capable of recognizing when they're impacting the people around them in negative ways. Another sign of a selfish person is when they're driven only by their own self-interest, and don't care about how their actions might affect others. Legit, they often say it straight up, like it's self-care. Creating or opening Reddit threads on selfishness to find out if it's really them that's the problem, or if Marissa's actually totally full of shit. I can't believe you, Marissa. Trauma dumping and then not reciprocating if someone else had a bad day, felt comfortable enough to open up to them. Combative comparisons. This is what I call it when someone always has a response to what you are talking about that somehow always seems to one-up you. It doesn't matter what you are talking about. Somehow, they always have a better or worse story that puts yours aside. It's intended to invalidate what you are speaking about and remove the attention from you onto them. Pay close attention to people who practice this malicious style of conversation. You will be glad you made note of it, as usually this is not only selfish, but very narcissistic in nature. People who have kids on purpose, and then act like their kids owe them for the rest of their lives. They throw other people under the bus so fast you'll get whiplash if you stand too close, whether to save themselves or to humiliate the competition. No self-accounting at all. When you have a conversation about something in your life, finish what you have to say. Then the other person says nothing about that and completely changes the subject. When they go out clubbing or something, and bring their friends back home to continue the party at 2 a.m. However, he lives in a house share and his roommates have to go to work in the morning. Ever since I told him to break up the party, and that it isn't appropriate, especially since he didn't mention to anyone that he decided to have a 2 a.m. Wednesday night party. He complied, but ever since then he's been unpleasant and unfriendly with me. Cunt. People who always talk about money or the grind. Usually they will sell you out in a heartbeat or take advantage of others for money, which is pretty selfish. Someone who always puts themselves first and disregards the feelings of others is a telltale sign of being selfish. If you ask how are you, and they can't even be bothered to ask you the same. They only message you when they need a favor. No thank you or compliments. My cousin, when I cook food, she won't just say normal shit like thank you for the food, it's really good. Instead she says, is it bad? I actually like this food. Is it bad? I am craving that pasta you made. You think that's bad? They treat problems and other topics of conversation like a competition. They state their opinions like they're indisputable facts that others must agree with. Their behavioral flaws are forces of nature that can't be changed, regardless of how others are affected. Their validation is so important, they will say whatever they want, and they feel entitled to choose how others feel about it. Selfish people can't recognize their mistakes, they are never the problem. They ask questions like, is there really such a thing as altruism? Or are altruists really acting out of self-interest, and think they sound really profound and philosophical, when in reality they're just admitting that they honestly don't understand the concept of wanting to help someone. When you're having a conversation with someone and they are merely waiting for their turn to talk. The way they treat random people versus the way they treat people they want something from. They drive aggressively. We've all seen people weaving in and out of traffic, passing on the right, tailgating, etc. It's pretty selfish to create dangerous situations for others' drivers. Rudeness towards service industry employees. People who choose their own convenience at the inconvenience of others. Double parking, showing up late, phone on speaker in public, choosing the shorter right lane but not turning right, making everyone else behind them wait at the red light. Taking forever at a long-lined ATM or public restroom, holding up a public place to take multiple selfies. Defensive and gaslighting. Instead of a simple "sorry I did this," it's always "I'm sorry you feel that way." Pay attention to how much they interrupt you, or you'll say something that's pretty important, and they'll go okay and then talk about something else. This isn't always a sign of selfishness. It could be ADHD, habit they don't know they're doing, or they just don't gel with you. When they just take and give nothing back. Please delete your post, it's making me feel upset. How do they treat customer service people? Do they litter? At drink stations, do they leave it trashed? The more they ask in a relationship, the more you're having to give. That is, I think of relationships like a bridge. Generally, you should build from both sides, and in crisis you make up the difference, but a relationship is primarily meeting each other in the middle. Selfish or self-centered people pretend to build a relationship, but ask you to build the relational bridge all the way towards them. Ultimately, they expect you to build the relationship entirely towards them, and you're left giving more than receiving. Every billionaires in the world. They never give me their money. They only give me their funny papers. And in the middle of negotiation, they break down. Constant victim mentality. Like no matter what, they are always suffering and suffering worse than you. This makes it impossible to confide in them, and they will never actually see who you are or what you need. When they don't acknowledge any positive thing you do for them and obsess over the few times you don't go out of your way to cater to their fragile ego. When they say sorry, but nothing ever changes. People who sponge off someone else's tragedy to try and gain sympathy or attention for themselves. I wouldn't listen to those in this thread about seeming to talk about themselves in this thread. It's not just that. It's the showing I'm the conversation that they don't care when you talk or not pay attention that is more important. There are plenty of people like myself who have anxiety, and with that social anxiety who are also bad at talking, especially small talk stuff. If I don't know how to carry on a conversation, I default to offer something similar that happened to me or anything that I can show that I understand the other person in some way. I also know there are people with ADHD that use this as a coping mechanism. So I'd say look more at the tone, how interested they look, and other cues instead of just talking about themselves. You're always there for them, but don't even expect them to be there for you. General lack of consideration for others, whether it be division of goods, time, or conversation. They don't put the trolley back when done shopping. They keep changing their story to suit their own needs, to make them look like the right one and like you're evil. Even if you just caught them doing something completely wrong, they'll still find a way to completely switch it around and blame you. When there is drama, they make it about themselves. They don't accept your needs. I was at a friend's house last week and we chilled a bit. It was about 11 p.m. and I told him that I need to go because I'm tired, etc. He was disappointed and tried to let me stay all the time. It's just annoying. This is a bit of a strange one, but always seems to be true in my experience. People who instantly jump into the jokey, banter type talk with you. Call me old-fashioned, but I feel like most normal, non-selfish people go out of their way to at least be polite and self-edited when meeting new people. Then as you build up that rapport, you can then relax and start having more fun with each other. It's all about respecting people's comfort zones. Selfish people aren't interested in your comfort zone. So they just jump straight into the type of chatter that you typically reserve for your well-known friends, and they don't care if you aren't okay with that. It is the very first sign I know of that flags someone up as selfish, in my opinion. When you're venting to them about a valid, personal issue, thing you struggle with that has nothing to do with them, and they get mad at you because they've made it all about them and they think you're passive-aggressively critiquing them. When they need everyone else's attention, adoration, and they desperately need to be noticed. When they repeatedly say I, me, my non-stop. Someone gets hurt, and they pull out their phone to just film it instead of helping or even taking into consideration the person involved. Something my GF told me that I think about often. When they're speaking and someone adds to the conversation, they just pause and resume talking like nothing happened and don't even acknowledge what you said. Example, person A, I don't like soup. Person B, wow, I really enjoy soup, especially onion soup. Person A, soup to me tastes horrible and I hate every single soup on the planet. Person B, well, I think onion soup is delicious. Person A, my mom once made me vegetable soup and I puked. That's how much I hate soup. One of my neighbors had 2 teenage daughters. If he needed to drive them anywhere in the family car, he'd get into the driver's seat, adjust his seat and mirrors, seatbelt, and then would unlock the doors to allow his daughters to get into the vehicles. One time I watched him do this in the rain. I've heard the wife say that when the kids were young and crying and needed help eating, he'd have to finish his meal first before helping feed the kids, even though they ate dinner as a family, so the kids were right there next to him in a high chair. He seems like a nice person in the sense that he doesn't yell, doesn't have a temper, isn't prone to causing arguments or anything, but he just passively seemed to not consider his family before himself. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and leave a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to get more content like this. Also check out our other videos.